During the 19th century, the Ottoman Empire was in a state of decline and had to contend with independence movements and foreign threats, in particular from Russia. But thanks to British and French military interventions, they survived. However, they had to take out loans, make a series of reforms, and grant autonomy or independence to a lot of nations. Then in 1875, nearing bankruptcy, they increased taxes, triggering the Great Eastern Crisis. First, the Herzegovinians rebelled, and this then encouraged the Serbians and Montenegrins to declare war on the Ottomans. Plus, the Bulgarians also rebelled. But the Ottomans' brutal response angered those in the West, leaving them with no international support. So Russia felt free to press their claims and enforce the Ottomans to make peace with the Serbs. Before they entered Belgrade, in late 1876, the powers met to discuss terms. But the new constitutionalist ministers in Constantinople refused to follow their demands, giving Russia a cause for war. So Alexander II met with the Austrians secretly and agreed on how to divide the Balkans. In exchange for Austrian neutrality, they both planned on expanding into the Balkans. They wanted to create new nations and to turn Constantinople into a free city. So with no threats from other major powers, Russia declared war. In April 1877, the Romanians, who were still vassal of the Ottomans, allowed the Russians to cross through their territory, and then just a month later, they declared independence. The Ottomans, on the other hand, had recently acquired Western weapons and held well-fortified positions across the Balkans, but they were still dealing with a rebellion in Herzegovina and a war against Montenegro, so their forces were overstretched. And they did not expect Russia to march across the Danube, and focused on defending the Black Sea coast instead. So the Russians and Romanians just mined the river, destroying the Ottoman ships there, and crossed in late June. The Ottomans sent Osman Pasha north with 9,000 men to Plevena to hold against the Russian assaults, halting their advance south. So the Russians and Romanians besieged the fortress, while the Bulgarians also rose up. They captured the ship Kapas and continued to hold back Ottoman reinforcements, meaning there was a stalemate in the Balkans. Meanwhile, in the Caucasus, with the help of the Armenians, the Russians had captured Bayazit and laid siege to Kars in late May. But again, the besieged Ottomans held out, preventing the Russians from advancing on both fronts for months. It wasn't until late 1877 that Kars fell, and in December, an army of 150,000 Russians and Romanians were able to force Osman Pasha to surrender Pleven. In the wake of this breakthrough, Serbia opened hostilities with the Ottomans again, and began to forcefully deport tens of thousands of Albanians from their territory. And as they took places like Peru and Nice, the Russians fought the Ottomans back over the ship Kapas, and took Sofia in January 1878. Constantinople was now in real danger, so the British, now nervous about a complete Russian victory, got them to sign a truce in late January, but the Russians still continued marching south. So the British sent a fleet to defend Constantinople and forced the Russians to stop their advance at San Stefano, just kilometers away from the city. The great powers then met at San Stefano and agreed to grant Montenegro, Serbia and Romania full independence and gave them more land, while Russia took more land in the Caucasus and Dobruja. But a large Bulgarian principality was also created, and this worried many. For instance, the Greeks, who were already revolting in Epirus, also rose up in Macedonia, as they were unwilling to see it become Bulgarian, and many great powers were worried by Russia having too much influence in Bulgaria and wanted to put an end to a pan-Slavic bloc. So Bismarck of Germany hosted the Congress of Berlin in June. But the Ottomans were able to gain favor with the British during this conference by giving them Cyprus. In the end, the Austrians were still allowed to occupy Bosnia, while the Principality of Bulgaria was divided into 3 parts. But this failed to achieve any permanent peace and, in fact, worsened relations between many nations. For instance, the German-Russian alliance broke down because Germany didn't support Russia at the conference, and the Serbians felt betrayed by the Russians for allowing the Austrians to take Bosnia. And in the next few years, Greece took Thessaly, and the Bulgarians helped organize revolts in Rumelia and declared unification and independence. This, in turn, would lead to the outbreak of the Serbian-Bulgarian War, and the Ottomans and the new Balkan nations would continue to fight until the Balkan Wars in the early 20th century and into World War I.